What happens when an undercover CEO witnesses a moment of pain that no one else bothers to notice, and it changes everything? It was a slow Tuesday afternoon at Burgertown Express, one of the many stores in a national chain that stretched across gas stations and strip malls from coast to coast. Outside, the parking lot shimmered with heat, the kind that sticks to your skin. Inside, it was no cooler. The air conditioning had been broken for days, and the manager still hadn't called for a repair. In the back booth, near the soda machine, sat Elliot Hart, early 50s, dressed in khakis and a faded denim shirt. He looked like just another traveller grabbing a late lunch. His hair was greying at the temples, and his glasses fogged slightly from the humidity. But what no one knew was that Elliot wasn't just anyone. He was the CEO of Burgertown Express, visiting one of his own locations. Quietly, anonymously, and with purpose. Elliot had built the business from scratch, flipping burgers in a college town 30 years ago. He knew what the grind felt like, but lately, the complaints reaching corporate didn't sound like the place he'd created. Disrespect, turnover, poor treatment of staff. This location, store number 2287, had more complaints than any other in the state. So Elliot had decided to see for himself. No press, no heads up, no entourage, just him. And that's how he first noticed Maya. She couldn't have been more than 24, petite, ponytailed, moving fast behind the counter in a uniform that looked like it hadn't been replaced in years. There were dark circles under her eyes, and her sneakers were tearing at the seams. But she worked, fast, efficient, polite, always with a thank you, always with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She wasn't alone at the counter. Dave, the shift manager, was supposed to be running the floor. Instead, he was scrolling through his phone near the drive-thru, headset, occasionally barking orders without looking up. Every now and then, he'd toss a comment Maya's way, none of them kind. "Hustle up, Maya. This ain't nap time. You missed a spot on that counter. You gonna keep dragging your feet all day or just till we close?" Elliot watched. Not just Maya's movements, but her reactions. The way her shoulders tensed. The way she mumbled apologies even when it wasn't her fault. The way she flinched slightly when Dave walked by too close. He watched as she bent to clean under a table where a kid had spilled ketchup, her knees brushing the tile, her breath sharp as she straightened with effort. Then back to the fryer, then to the drive-thru, then to the trash. She didn't stop moving. There were 5 people on the schedule that day. Only Maya showed up. Elliot stood and refilled his soda, pretending not to watch. But he caught something in her eyes when she turned, toward the window, a moment, a flicker, something deeper than exhaustion, something closer to breaking. That's when he heard it. Maya had stepped outside to take the trash out. Elliot, seated near the door, heard her voice just behind the dumpster. She thought she was alone. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered. Her voice cracked. "They don't even see me. I'm trying so hard." And then, a soft sob. Just one. Quick. Like she was angry at herself for letting it slip. Elliot's chest tightened. He waited a moment, then casually stepped outside and circled around toward the dumpster. Maya had wiped her face, trying to compose herself. She turned quickly when she heard him. "Oh, I'm sorry," she said, brushing hair from her face. "Didn't see you there." He smiled gently. "No need to apologize. Rough day?" She nodded slowly. "Just short-staffed. It happens." He tilted his head. "You all right?" She hesitated. Then she lied. "Yeah, just tired, that's all." He didn't push. Instead, he offered her a folded napkin from his pocket. "Name's Elliot," he said, passing through. "You're doing a good job in there." She blinked, then gave him the smallest smile he'd seen from her all day. "Thanks. Not many folks say that." "I bet they should," he replied. And with that, she grabbed the empty bin and made her way back inside. But Elliot didn't follow. He stood for a moment, staring at the back of the building, his jaw tight. He'd seen enough. The next day, the real visit would begin. And this time, he wouldn't be sitting quietly in the corner. The next morning, the sun hadn't even crested over the strip mall signage when Elliot Hart pulled into the parking lot of Burgertown Express 2287. But Maya was already there. She stood out front, fumbling with the keys, hands shaking slightly as she struggled to get the stubborn lock to turn. Her backpack sagged from her shoulders, and she wore the same uniform from the day before, faded, stretched at the seams, with a fresh stain near the hem. She'd clearly washed it overnight and hung it to dry. Elliot noticed all of it. But this time, he wasn't here to pretend. This time, he was walking in as himself. He parked around the corner and made a quiet call to corporate. Have the district manager, HR lead, and training director meet me at store 2287 by 10 a.m. and don't alert the store itself. I want to observe first. Then he stepped inside, holding the door for Maya as she finally managed to open it. She looked up, a bit startled. Oh, morning. Didn't expect anyone this early. Elliot gave a warm smile. I'm early most places I go. She grinned faintly, then hurried behind the counter, tying her apron, already slipping into rhythm. He watched as she moved, this time with just a little less energy than the day before. Within minutes, Dave arrived. Late. He entered through the side door with headphones in, sipping a giant iced coffee, sunglasses still on, despite the dim fluorescent lighting. He didn't greet Maya, didn't acknowledge the customer seated quietly in the dining area, Elliot. Instead, he dropped his bag on the prep counter and barked, Trash isn't out. Floors aren't mopped. You here since 5, and this still ain't done. Maya didn't even flinch. She nodded. I started the mopping, but I had to take inventory and prep the fryer. I'm getting to the rest. Dave waved her off. Yeah. Just don't make excuses. I've got 2 interviews today, and I'm not about to carry your weight. Elliot's face remained neutral, but something behind his eyes shifted. The restaurant opened. Orders trickled in. Maya managed everything. Counter, fryer, drive-through, a restock. Dave hovered but offered no help. Just comments. That burger's crooked. You forgot to smile again. Customers don't want attitude with their ketchup. Each word was a paper cut, and Maya kept bleeding in silence. By 9:15, she was visibly shaking. That's when Elliot stood and approached the counter. Maya turned, startled to see him standing so close. Can I help you? She asked, catching her breath. He smiled gently. Yes, actually. I was wondering if I could speak with your manager. Dave swaggered forward, finally noticing. You need something? Elliot turned to him slowly. You're the shift manager. Yeah, Dave said, arms crossed. You got a complaint or something? Elliot tilted his head slightly, amused. You could say that. Just then, the front door swung open, and in walked Gina Morales, the regional HR director, followed. Closely by Jerome Fields, the district manager, and LaToya Sims, head of training and development, all in pressed shirts, holding clipboards, eyes scanning the room with intent. Dave blinked. Wait, what's going on? Gina walked straight toward Elliot. Mr. Hart, we're here, just like you asked. Maya turned slowly, confusion rippling across her face. Wait, Mr. Hart? Elliot turned to her, removed his glasses and said simply, Maya, I'm Elliot Hart, CEO of Burgertown Express. The silence in the restaurant was absolute. Dave turned pale. Wait, you were here yesterday? Elliot nodded. And the day before that, watching, listening. He stepped forward, looking Dave dead in the eyes. I watched you disrespect your only team member on shift. I watched you ignore customers, blame others for your laziness, and speak down to someone who was holding this store together with duct tape and grit. He turned toward Maya. And I watched you, Maya, show up early, stay late, clean, cook, smile, even when no one gave you a reason to. Maya stared at him, wide-eyed, frozen. Elliot turned to Jerome. Effective immediately, I want a full investigation into this store's management practices. Interview all current and former staff. Pull turnover reports, customer reviews, everything. Then to Gina. Have HR issue a formal write-up on Dave. Pending results. I expect a recommendation for reassignment or termination within 48 hours. Dave tried to speak. Sir, I didn't know who she... That's exactly the problem, Elliot snapped, voice low but firm. You didn't know, so you didn't care. He took a breath, looked to Maya. You shouldn't have to cry behind a dumpster to be seen. That ends today. Maya's lips trembled. She couldn't find the words. Elliot smiled gently. You've kept this store afloat. And I'm not just saying thank you, I'm saying things are going to change. For real, he turned to LaToya. Get her a temporary relief team so she can take a break. Paid leave. And let's talk about a training. Mentorship. She deserves to grow. LaToya smiled. Consider it done. As they all moved toward the back office, Maya stood in place, blinking at the light, blinking at the sudden weight lifted off her shoulders. The man who'd seen her had returned, and this time, he wasn't silent. It had been 5 days since Elliot Hart revealed himself inside store number 287, and the entire restaurant felt different. Gone were the sharp glances, the snide remarks, the stomping presence of Dave barking across the fryer like he owned the place. In his absence, things were calmer, quieter, not perfect, but breathable, like someone had cracked a window in a room that had been closed off for far too long. And for the first time in months, Maya didn't walk into work with dread. She still woke early, still tied her sneakers tight, still showed up before sunrise, but now the weight wasn't dragging her down, it was lifting, because someone had finally said what she never could. She mattered. LaToya Sims from corporate had assigned a temporary 3-person relief team to take over the bulk of operations, while the location transitioned through review. One of those staffers, a bubbly guy named Trevor from the flagship store, walked beside Maya her second morning back, joking. You're kind of a legend, you know that? Maya blinked. Me? Yeah. Word is, you ran this store with duct tape and burnt fries for months, and corporate just called you the strongest asset in the district. She flushed. I just didn't want the place to fall apart. Trevor smiled. That's exactly why you're the kind of person this company needs more of. Behind them, 2 new team members were deep cleaning the fry station, something Maya hadn't seen done in weeks. The headset system was replaced, the air conditioning finally repaired, and fresh uniforms had arrived that morning. She didn't know if Elliot had ordered it all personally, but it felt like he had. That afternoon, LaToya returned with Jerome Fields. They called Maya into the back office and sat across from her, not like bosses, but like people who genuinely wanted to hear her voice. You've been on our radar for a while, Maya, LaToya said. We just didn't realize how much you were holding on your own. That ends now. Jerome leaned forward. We want to offer you a promotion, assistant manager track, starting next month. Paid training, mentorship, and full benefits. Maya stared. Not because she didn't want it, but because no one had ever offered her something she didn't have to beg for. She swallowed hard. I don't even have a degree, or a resume. LaToya shook her head. You've got something. More valuable, resilience, work ethic, leadership, even when no one saw it. We saw it now. Maya covered her mouth as tears filled her eyes. You'll really mean it. We really do. Later that week, Elliot returned to store Thorora 2287, but not as a mystery man in a booth. He walked in broad daylight, wearing a simple polo, a genuine smile, and the ease of someone who knew he'd done the right thing. Customers didn't know who he was, but staff did. They stood straighter, they smiled wider, not out of fear, but pride. He found Maya near the register, helping an elderly woman navigate the touchscreen kiosk. She looked calm, confident. When the woman left with her tray, Maya turned and froze. Mr. Hart. Elliot, he corrected with a smile. Always Elliot. She laughed. I didn't think you'd come back. Of course I did, he said. Had to see how my best team member was doing. She chuckled softly, then grew serious. You didn't have to do what you did, but you did, and I'm just grateful. I didn't think anyone saw me. Elliot's expression softened. I didn't just see you, he said. You reminded me why I started this company in the first place. They stood in silence for a moment, the hum of the fryer, the buzz of conversation, but between them, peace. Before he left, he handed her a small envelope. From me. No corporate nonsense, just something I wanted you to have. She opened it that night, at home. Inside, a handwritten letter. Maya, thank you for holding the line when no one else would. You're not invisible, not anymore. You're the reason this place still has a soul. Elliot, and underneath it, a prepaid scholarship voucher. Any course, any certification, any path she chose to follow. Maya didn't cry when she read it. She smiled, because for the first time in her life, her future felt like hers. 3 weeks had passed since Elliot Hart stepped into store number 2287 as a quiet observer. And now, the story that began with one woman's whispered breakdown was spreading through the entire Burgertown Express network like wildfire. Regional managers were talking. Corporate was shifting. Training protocols were rewritten. And at the center of it all was Maya. She hadn't asked for attention. She hadn't made a scene. But her story, how she kept showing up when no one else did, had become the example. The company held up for what integrity really looked like. Elliot never made a public statement about it. He didn't need to. The staff across the region knew. And what mattered most? Maya knew. She wore her new uniform like armor. Her name tag now read, Maya Thompson, assistant manager in training. And her posture had changed, not cocky or proud, but confident, steady. Her laugh came easier, her shoulders relaxed, and her co-workers, especially the new hires, looked to her with something close to awe. One Friday afternoon, Burgertown Express Corporate held a livestream meeting, a rare company-wide video event that normally only happened during quarterly updates or when new products were launched. Every store was asked to gather their staff, and in every dining room across dozens of states, employees pulled up chairs, tablets, or phones and waited. On screen appeared Elliot, seated in his office, sleeves rolled, smile relaxed. Good afternoon, everyone, he said. I won't keep you long. I just have something important to share. He looked straight into the camera. 3 weeks ago, I visited one of our locations without warning. I went in looking for answers. I came out with a story I'll never forget. He paused. There was a young woman working there, one employee holding up an entire shift alone. She was overlooked, underappreciated, and being treated unfairly, but she never gave up. She worked hard, stayed kind, and pushed through. Elliot leaned forward. Her name is Maya Thompson, and she's the reason we're having this meeting today. Gasps and murmurs spread across break rooms in dozens of cities. In the face of disrespect, she chose grace. In the absence of leadership, she led by example, and when no one else saw her value, she still showed up. The screen changed, briefly showing a live image of Maya at store SHRM 2287. Her co-workers clapped around her as she sat frozen in stunned silence. Elliot's voice returned. I've seen a lot of employees over the years, but rarely have I seen someone hold a store together with nothing but willpower and a heart that refused to quit. Maya reminded me why this brand was built, not for speed, not for profit, but for people. The screen faded to a new slide. The Maya Thompson Initiative. Elliot explained. A new company-wide recognition program, created in her name, to honor frontline employees who go above and beyond, not for rewards, but because they care. Quarterly bonuses, mental health days, access to free online learning, because we can't afford to miss another Maya, he finished. When the stream ended, Maya was still sitting there, eyes wide, mouth open. The staff burst into cheers. Trevor hugged her. Jasmine, the new cashier she'd been mentoring, was crying. Maya stood slowly. She looked around at the faces smiling back at her and tried to find something to say, but she didn't need to. Her tears spoke for her. Later that evening, Elliot visited the store in person one final time. He didn't say much, just dropped off a gift, a black box tied with a simple silver ribbon. Inside, a brand new manager's watch engraved with 6 words. You were never invisible to me. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true-to-life stories that remind us kindness seen is kindness multiplied.